Welcome back to Bit Distracted Games. My name is Nick, and this video continues the beginner 2D platformer tutorial by adding doors to our game. So far we have a game with visuals, collectible coins, and a scoring HUD. After this video is done, the player will be able to move from one level to the next by touching a door. We will revisit many of the same concepts as the coin video, so this video should be a great refresher on creating new collidable entities and working with collision relationships. Our game should currently have two levels, Level 1 and Level 2. As a developer, you can switch the startup screen using the dropdown at the top of FRB. Level 1, Level 2. But currently, there is no way for the player to switch between levels once the game starts. We will be creating a door entity for switching between screens. This door entity must have a few things. First, it must be collidable. This means it must have an axis aligned rectangle so that the game can detect when the player touches the door. The second is that it must have a target level. In other words, the door must indicate which level to load when the player collides with the door. Fortunately, creating this door is fairly simple, and similar to the creation of the coin entity in the previous tutorials. To create a door entity, right-click Entities, and then Add Entity. For the name, we're going to call this Door. Note, in a full game, we may want to have a sprite, and we may want to give the sprite visuals, just like we did for the coin entity. To keep the tutorial a bit shorter, we'll skip these steps. But if you are interested in adding a sprite for your door visuals, you may want to review the coin entity tutorial or join the FlatRedBall Discord server for help. Next, we want to check the axis aligned rectangle to add a rectangle for collision. Leave all of the other defaults checked. Most importantly, make sure that the include list in game screen is checked. We need this option checked so that we can collide our door versus player. After you click OK, you should have a door entity in your entities folder. Before we continue, I'm going to select edit mode. So far, we have worked with the X and Y variables on player and coin entities. Whenever we grab an existing coin instance or player instance in our level and move it around, we are changing these variables. If we go to level 1, select the coin entity, we can see the variables over here, X and Y. If we move the coin all the way up here, pay attention to the variables. The variables have changed. I'm going to move this back now. These variables are automatically available on all entities, but we can also add new variables. We'll add a new variable to the door entity so that we can indicate which level to go to when the player collides with the door. To add a new variable, click on Door, make sure it's expanded, and right-click on Variables, and then select Add Variable. Select a string, as this type will let us enter any text for the variable value, and then enter the name target level. It's also a good idea to leave a summary of what this variable is, as it might get confusing and hard to remember what everything does as your game gets larger. For my summary, I'll type the name of the screen to go to when the player collides with the door. And then select OK. Now we have our new variable. Notice that we are leaving the value for the variable blank here on the door entity. We will assign the value on instances of the door. By doing so, each door can go to a different level. Next, we'll set up collision between our door list and player list. To review some concepts from the coin collision video. First, collision should be set up between player list and door list. Do not set up collision between the individual items within the lists. Secondly, create the collision relationships in the game screen and not in the level screens. We want collisions to apply in all levels. This is why we do it in the game screen. Now, let's create the collision relationship. Expand the game screen objects folder. Drag and drop player list onto door list. This creates a collision relationship. Select the player versus door collision and then click the button to add a new event for collision. This is where we will write the C# code to go to the desired level. Our new event is added to the gamescreen.events.cs file, the same file which should still have our player versus coin collision event. We can add our collision handling by opening up Visual Studio and then expand the screens folder and expand gamescreen.cs. Select gamescreen.event.cs and you should see this. Here's our player versus coins event, and here's our new player versus door event. Inside this function, let's add the following code on the onPlayer versus door collided event. Move to screen door dot target level. Always remember the semicolon as well. Now this code will run whenever the player collides with the door. And finally, we'll add a door to level 1. Now, we can add a door instance to level 1. To do this, go to FRB, make sure level 1 is selected, and then drag and drop a door into the game window. Move the door into the desired position. Right here seems okay to me. Click on the Variables tab, and then change the target level value to level 2. Be sure to match capitalization and to not include any spaces in the name. We want this to match the level 2 spelling exactly as it shows right here, or else it won't work. Now we can run the game and collide with the door. As soon as the player touches the door, the game will move to the level 2 that we told it to. Isn't that awesome? I think this is pretty cool. When we call the move to screen function, a lot goes on behind the scenes. Most importantly, whenever we move to a new screen, everything in the old screen is destroyed. Then the new screen is completely recreated from scratch. This means that anything that was a part of the old screen will go away, including the score variable that we created in a previous tutorial. If you recall collecting all 3 coins in level 1, we moved to level 2, and you should notice that the score resets back to 0. And you can see that right here. It's kind of hard to see, but now it was 300, but now it's 0 when we move to this level 2. As mentioned in the previous tutorial, this is why variables such as scoring are often stored outside of a screen. However, we won't cover how to create a shared variable value between levels in this tutorial, but I'm mentioning it in case you notice that the score reset. If you've gotten this far, then congratulations! You now have a game with multiple levels that the player can move between by touching doors. At this point, you can create additional levels and add more doors so that the game can be played fully through multiple levels. As always, I encourage you to try working on your own project after each tutorial, since doing so is the best way to learn. And of course, if you have any questions or get stuck on anything, you can also join the FlatRedBall Discord server, as we're always eager to help. Thanks again for watching, and I cannot wait to see you at the next tutorial.